All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover the ultimate blend of ancient Himalayan mythology and extreme physical endurance. Welcome everyone. Today we're unpacking one of the most enigmatic trails in the Garhwal Himalayas. It's a journey that's going to test both your spirit and your body, pushing trekkers to their absolute limits while offering some seriously profound historical and spiritual rewards.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty logistics, I want you to really think about what it takes to conquer the most grueling, yet rewarding, trail in the entire region. You know, we often hear about treks that end up being just a walk in the park, but let me tell you, this is a completely different beast. This requires stepping into a landscape where the air is incredibly thin, the paths are insanely steep, and the history literally dates back millennia.
So to answer that, here's our agenda for today's explainer. Section 1, The Legend of Panch Kedar. Section 2, The Toughest Himalayan Trek. Section 3, The Route to Rudranath. Section 4, Timing Your Expedition. And finally, Section 5, Training and Preparation.
Okay, starting with Section 1, The Legend of Panch Kedar, Seeking the Divine Face.
So the story goes that right after the epic Kurukshetra war, the Pandavas were absolutely desperate to atone for the fratricide they'd committed. But Lord Shiva, he wasn't having it. Displeased with all the bloodshed, he actually eluded them by disguising himself as a bull. When Bhima finally tried to catch him, the bull just vanished into the earth, scattering into 5 distinct parts across the mountains to become the sacred Panch Kedar. And right here at Rudranath is where the Ekanan, the human face of Lord Shiva, emerged. It's literally the sole place on earth where he's worshipped in this specific form.
This history makes Rudranath the Chaturth Kedar, which means it's the 4th stop on the Kedar pilgrimage circuit. And because it sits so secluded, tucked deep within alpine forests and high mountain meadows, simply reaching this mystical rock cave is an entirely different caliber of challenge compared to any of the other shrines.
Which brings us to Section 2, The Toughest Himalayan Trek, Confronting the Physical Reality.
Now, let's pivot from divine serenity to the grueling physical reality. You are looking at trekking 44 kilometers round trip. Let's be clear about what that means. That's essentially an ultra-marathon distance, but instead of flat pavement, you are navigating incredibly unforgiving vertical terrain. It demands immense stamina and just relentless forward momentum.
And to make matters even more intense, your destination sits at an extreme 11,800 feet above sea level. At roughly 3,600 meters, that thin oxygen is absolutely going to test your limits. Every single step carries the heavy weight of altitude, making proper acclimatization not just a friendly recommendation, but a vital survival requirement.
When it comes to picking your starting point, well, you kind of get to choose your poison here. Most trekkers go ahead and opt for the 22-kilometer Sagar village route because of its established infrastructure and those sweeping cinematic views. But hey, if you prefer a slightly more gradual initial ascent, the 24-kilometer Mandal village route passes right by the beautiful Anasuya Devi Temple. Or you could even combine shrines via the Helang route. No matter which trailhead you pick though, you are in for a serious challenge.
Let's move into Section 3, The Route to Rudranath, Navigating the Wilderness.
If we look closely at that highly popular Sagar village route, you're basically signing up for a 4-day battle, balancing massive ascents with vital recovery. Day 1 is really all about just arriving at base camp to rest and acclimatize. Day 2? That pushes you 9 kilometers straight upward through dense oak forests until you hit the meadows of Layuti Bugyal. Day 3 is the ultimate test, a grueling 12-kilometer round trip pushing all the way to the temple and back to camp. Finally, Day 4 is your 9-kilometer descent back down to civilization.
But hey, as you push through the sheer pain of those steep ascents, your senses are going to be profoundly rewarded. The trail suddenly opens up into these vast velvet green bugyals, or alpine meadows. You'll stumble upon the celestial Vaitarani River, famous as the River of Salvation. And on clear days, you'll be staring down uninterrupted, panoramic views of Himalayan giants like Nanda Devi, Trishul, and Chalkamba. It is a spectacular visual payoff for all that physical exertion.
All right, on to Section 4, Timing Your Expedition, Seasons of the Himalayas.
Now, timing your trek changes everything. Depending on whether you prefer vibrant, blooming trails or sharper, crystal-clear photography conditions, both seasons offer drastically different but equally spectacular experiences. Summer gives you highly stable weather, comfortable daytime temperatures, and gorgeous blooming wildflowers. Autumn, on the other hand, offers a razor-sharp, wash-clean landscape right after the monsoon, turning all the meadows golden. It's much quieter, and the visibility of those peaks, absolutely unmatched.
But mark my words on this one, you must absolutely avoid the flash floods and landslides of the summer monsoon. Seriously, it's not worth the risk. And by late October, heavy snow forces a total closure of the route. In fact, the idol itself is ceremonially carried down to its winter seat in Gopeshwar. After that happens, visiting the temple becomes quite literally impossible.
This brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Training and Preparation, Mastering the Mountain. Look, you simply cannot just show up and expect to succeed on this trail. Treating your physical preparation like a part-time job is non-negotiable. You really need to kick off an intensive cardio regimen at least 8 to 10 weeks in advance. We are talking running or cycling 5 times a week. You've got to build that leg strength to handle the relentless stairs. And crucially, practice hiking with a weighted 50-liter backpack, so your core is actually prepared for those uneven, rocky paths.
And brilliantly complementing all that fitness is your gear and strategy. You need to layer properly, invest in insulated boots with solid ankle support, and definitely use trekking poles to save your knees on that brutal descent. But above all else, strictly follow the climb high, sleep low rule. That means you hike up to higher elevations during the day to trigger your body's adaptation, but drop back down a bit to actually sleep. That right there is the ultimate secret to keeping altitude sickness at bay.
So, we've explored the incredible myth of the Panch Kedar, we've mapped out that grueling 44-kilometer path, and we've outlined the exact survival strategy you're going to need. This trek is a true test of endurance, offering an unparalleled sense of spiritual and physical accomplishment. But the final, undeniable challenge is entirely up to you. The mountain is waiting. So, are you ready to face it?